Hi guys, it's Steph again from Big World Small Pockets, and I am here with
Lauren from Wanderlust Movement, and
um
we're
w-
back. Oh,
we're
we almost
back.
synced up there.
That would have been
Really
great
cool.
if we had. And we're very excited, as you can see, to be back and talking more about budget and solo travel in Africa. Lauren, I know solo travel in Africa can be both empowering and intimidating. So I'm really interested to know what inspired you to take your first solo trip and whether it changed you and how it might have done so.
So it all started, I think, in 2013, just as blogging as a concept was starting to take off. And I saw these two women. It was Kirsten from The Blonde Abroad and Brooke Saywood from World of Wanderlust. And I saw them traveling solo around the world. And that was just the first time I had ever come into contact with women doing this. And I thought this was so incredible. And it just sparked thoughts in my brain. I was like, I have to go do this. I need to experience this.
Amazing.
And yeah, I booked a group tour as like my first solo trip. And it was an overlander from Johannesburg to Vic Falls for this New Year's Eve festival that they have there every year. And that was pretty cool.
Yeah. So how many days was that trip?
It was about a week. Yeah, going there, and then the festival was like 3 days, and then coming back, and then we stopped over in Botswana as well. Yeah, it was my first time going to Vic Falls and getting to see that, and it was really cool to be able to do the sightseeing and all the adventure activities, and then also have the festival during the night.
That's great. And did that kind of start the fire in you? Did you immediately start booking other solo trips? Or,
Yeah,
yeah.
it did. I went to Thailand, I think, a few months after that. And I spent like 6 months in Thailand and did, the typical Southeast Asia budget backpacking trip. Thailand, Vietnam, Malaysia, Laos, Indonesia. And
Incredible.
yourself? When was your first solo trip?
I first went to Africa when I was 18, actually, but it wasn't solo.
Mm.
It was me and my best friend from school we were on our like gap year, which we do in the UK between high school and university.
Hmm.
And everyone else was going to Australia and New Zealand, and we were like, we're not doing that. We're going to go to South Africa. And yeah, we ended up traveling, we're backpacking basically the whole length of the country, and then going into
Oh,
Mozambique, and then getting on a catamaran and sailing to Madagascar. It was like a wild,
oh wow, you've been to
wild
Madagascar?
trip. Yeah. And so experiencing that at 18, it just blew my mind, and it was just so exciting. And yeah, Africa has kind of gripped me ever since. So then I had been back to North Africa quite a lot, but I hadn't been to Southern Africa again until 2017. And that's when I went back, and my first trip as a solo female, and actually traveled from Cape Town to Cairo over about 8 months, mostly overland,
Oh,
apart from a few borders that I had to fly because it wasn't safe. And you could travel through Ethiopia, Sudan was all safe at that time. So yeah, so I got to do the full route. And so that once again, that just
and you did
completely,
that alone?
I did that by myself. Yes, I did group trips for some of it. Some of it was
Yeah.
overland group trips, but other parts, yeah, were. And certainly from Kenya all the way north was all solo travel.
And what was
Um,
your highlight from that? Because that's pretty epic.
it's pretty epic. Oh, I don't know. I just love traveling in Africa so much. Like, I just don't think there's anywhere else on the planet that makes you feel more alive and more tapped into like this realness and rawness. And I
Mhm.
find that just super exhilarating.
Mm.
I guess Ethiopia was a real highlight. I
That's
hadn't
high on
been
my bucket
there.
list.
Yeah, oh my goodness, you have to go. I like love, love, love it. I didn't know anyone that had been there. I didn't know much about it. I guess the mainstream narrative is all just still around the famine they had in the 80s, that we don't really have that much other news stories coming out about that destination. And just what I went and what I saw just blew me away in terms of the culture, the history, the people, the food, the wildlife. Yeah, it's just so rich and so
Did you go and see those the churches that are like built in the ground?
so there's the Lalibela churches that are built
Yes, yes,
down.
yes.
Yeah, amazing. And I think I was there on a it must be a Sunday, which is like their special, obviously, holy day. And they get up at dawn and there's like a whole service and everybody's dressed in white. And I was the only visitor there as far as I could see. It just felt
That's pretty
such
cool.
a privilege to be there. Yeah, it was like hard to believe, to be honest. So I definitely, don't get me started because I can talk about it all day, but I
No,
definitely recommend it as a country to visit.
I love Ethiopian food, so that's also why I want to go there. I need to have it in the actual country it comes from because it's so good.
Totally. And if you're into your coffee, it's going to
Oh
blow your
yes, yeah,
socks
the
off.
coffee as well. How did you find solo travel in Africa, like over so many months? Was it super intimidating? Yeah, like, was there a big adjustment?
I think I found it all right. I've done quite a lot of traveling in between those times, so I guess I'm not super naive. I've got a bit of sort of street savviness about me, so I think that definitely helps. But you also meet a surprising amount of people, especially in that southern and eastern African section, either through group travels or through staying in hostels, met like great backpacker crews. Or if you even do shorter tours, say you're in Nairobi and you just want to do a 3-day to Masai Mara, you might meet people on that trip and then you decide to go to the coast together, whatever, and then you stay in a nice place and there's other people you meet. So yeah, I didn't find it that intimidating. I think there's a sense, and maybe you can talk about this as well, that Africa is really scary and intimidating, but I feel like once it's like kind of unknown, not many people go, it feels like, and yeah, there's a lot of fear around it. But then when you actually get there, you're like, oh, this is fine. Has that been your
That's true.
experience as well?
Yeah, I think growing up as South African, it probably wasn't like maybe as big of like a culture shock. I think coming from like the UK, but I've always said like South Africa is Africa on easy mode
It's
compared to other
light,
countries.
isn't it? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, in my solo travels, I found it pretty easy, even though there may be not the same level of infrastructure compared to like South Africa or like in the like European countries. People are always really helpful and friendly, and it's been easy for me to navigate, kind of like figure out where I was supposed to go. And that was even before Google Maps became as useful as it is
Prolific and
now.
yeah,
Google
ubiquitous.
Translate, all those things. So
Sure.
I think all those apps have just made solo travel a lot more easier and accessible and like less intimidating for women, especially.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that sometimes because English is spoken quite largely, even as a second or third language, but
Hmm.
in lots of those countries, and especially in the tourism industry, then that also makes it easier, right, to
Hmm.
get by in other countries, even in the days before Google Travel. But I'm interested if you have had any challenges you faced as a solo female traveler. Maybe you have a specific example of a time that was a little bit difficult and how you may have handled that.
I think for me, always the things that spring to mind is just when I do mess up on public transport.
Oh, yeah.
So, and then I have to figure things out, or it'll be like not charging my spare battery pack for my phone, and my phone's about to die, and I kind of have to go a bit more old school with figuring out how am I going to get out of this, whether it's maybe finding some place where I can go charge my phone for a bit, or like, talking to people and getting their help instead of relying on just the phone to get somewhere. But otherwise, well, solo travel makes you very self-reliant and like
Totally.
independent. So I think like the more you do it, it becomes easy, and a lot of things just become like second nature. Like when a problem like happens, you're like, okay, let me think of like all the solutions, and you don't maybe have the same meltdown as you did on like your first trip. Like I remember crying in a Bangkok train station when I messed up my train like the first time. And like I wouldn't have that reaction now if I had missed my train or messed the times up or something like that. It would just be straight, okay, like cool, what's the solution? How are we gonna fix this? Let's move on to the next thing.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, like, how do you stay confident when you're traveling? But I think it builds, doesn't it? Like, the more
Hmm.
travels that you do, the more secure you feel, as you say, more self-resilient, self-reliant. You can deal with mishaps easier. And I think that builds, yeah, with each travel and the more time you spend in a continent. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's It's just, yeah, there aren't that many things that would knock me where I would just be completely lost. That problem solving brain, I think you just, yeah, you're growing that muscle and it just becomes easier to like recover from things. Like, yeah, you'll be like, oh shit. Like I've had my wallet stolen in Paris. Yeah, that's probably a thing. And like that was tough, but thankfully we have the tap and pay now. So I wasn't completely screwed.
Absolutely. You're
Um,
like, okay, I've got a backup here. This is what I
yeah.
can do.
And now you can like
Definitely.
block your cards on your banking app phone. You don't have to like phone your bank overseas, wait for that. Yeah, and you can get a virtual card now. So yeah.
Technology definitely helps a lot
Yeah.
for sure. And I often think that, when people are talking about Africa not being safe, I live in London, also a big city, lots of crime. You got
Mhm.
your wallet stolen in Paris. It's like we wouldn't tell people not to solo travel in these places. So
No,
how
for
we
sure.
construct narratives around safety and solo female safety is quite skewed often, I think. But I know that that is a concern, especially for newbie solo female travelers heading to Africa. So would you have any tips for them? Like, how did you grow your confidence, or learn to problem solve initially when you started out?
I think it comes down to planning. So like really figuring out like before I go anywhere, okay, what is my itinerary going to look like? And then what are the logistics for actually doing this? What buses am I going to take? Are there is okay, obviously not Africa doesn't have metros, but if we were in a country with metros, like what are the metro lines? And then figuring, okay, how do I use the public transport here? Do I need to get a card beforehand? Can I get like a tourist card at the airport that gives me like unlimited travel? Do I pay with cash? And then in Africa, a lot like, are they going to accept the USD on public transport, or I'm going to have to get like the local currency, like the Kenyan shilling? And kind of just really thinking about all those things beforehand and preparing just takes out a lot of the potential problems because you've already thought about all the different information that you might need to help you get where you need to get to. Yeah.
Great advice. And where do you source that information? Do you read blogs a lot, or Lonely
Yeah.
Planet, old school guidebooks? Where do you tend to go?
I would say at the moment it's definitely still reading people's blogs or watching YouTube videos, even like TikToks, because I find that that's really cool now. People sharing like little bits and pieces of information. I have like a folder for different destinations on my TikTok and I can save the tips there. And then
Nice.
obviously ChatGPT can help as well. Especially, I think we're on ChatGPT 5 now and it includes sources, so at least you can like fact check it and see if
Lovely.
it is not hallucinating, if it's telling the truth or not. And that can save time in the process because I think what I've never really enjoyed about sometimes the Google search results is that it's like not being specific enough to what I want. And it's just like showing the top 10 pages in like this predefined order. And then you sometimes have to open so many tabs to kind of get to the information you want. Where I feel like though I have seen that Google now is with their little AI thing as well, the search results are getting a bit more like nuanced, which I'm like really enjoying.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, a whole range of resources. I agree. TikTok, I think, is really helpful. It's also, you can search there, which I like more than Instagram.
Hmm.
And yeah, you can see local content from, right, you don't have to be following people. You
Yeah.
can find new people who are based in that country or visiting to give you loads of top information. What about meeting other travelers on the road, or support network, or yeah, how do you go about that? Or do you want your own time? I mean, maybe that's also true.
Yeah, I do like having my own time, but I would say when I start to out introvert myself, I do like the group tours for meeting people. It's fantastic. Or even staying in hostels. Even though I am like 35 now, I do tend to stay more by myself. But when I'm doing a very long extended trip, I do get a bit socially deprived. And
Right.
then I do check into a hostel, even if I have like my own room. And it's just really nice to be able to meet people that way, as well as just going like to events. I always like try to research,
Oh,
see if
cool.
there's festivals like we were talking about earlier. Festivals is like a wonderful place to meet people. Everyone's like so friendly and open. It's really easy to form connections. Yeah, and then Facebook groups, like for the expats, if you are staying in a place longer, like spending a month or two in Cape Town, for example, It's a really nice way to find other travelers that are doing the same thing and start establishing friends that are going to be there the same time period as you.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I think I'm also getting older now as well, so I don't enjoy staying in dorms. I do like private rooms, but loads of hostels have private rooms, so you can still get the sociability of a communal place, more communal orientated accommodation with some privacy. And I think in countries that maybe, in my experience, are a little more off the beaten track in Africa, like Ethiopia, they don't have hostels per se, but they have guest houses that kind of have a similar vibe. So it's all private rooms, but there might be a lounge area, or you meet over breakfast, it's kind of a communal breakfast, and or there's like a garden or a terrace where you might bump into other tourists. So I think that is a great way to do it. It's both a budget win and and a networking win, isn't it? Whereas I feel like you don't get that experience if you stay in more exclusive accommodation. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think it tends to be
I think it also depends on the vibe of the accommodation, if it is more exclusive or it's more like romance, in mind.
Right.
People are probably like not looking to make friends, they're busy wanting to spend time with their partner.
That's fair. Yeah, don't go to the honeymoon hotel, that's for sure. That's great. That's so helpful. And just finally, I'm sure it has, but can you tell us a little bit about how solo travel in Africa may have changed your outlook and life, or benefited you in any way?
Like my first trip that I did to Mozambique has always been pretty like pivotal. Like when I think about one of my favorite destinations I've ever traveled to, it is Mozambique, and that was just a really cool experience because I was there alone and I was backpacking and using public transports, and like a lot of things could have gone wrong. Like people could have been like not helpful, those type of things. But people were so lovely. Our bus broke down, and like they made sure that I got on the right bus to carry on where I was going, because I would not have known. It's not, the buses there like don't have signs on them,
right,
and all that. So it was just a really like lovely way to realize that generally people are good, have good intentions at heart, and it's just a lovely way to connect with people. And that's just been a theme throughout my solo travels. When I have had to interact with people, generally people are either sometimes going out of their way or just being like super nice to you, where they don't really have to, but they are, and it just like really restores like my faith in humanity, as corny as that sounds. And I wouldn't have had those experiences if I was probably with like someone else, because you do tend to be like more closed off. You'll like rely on each other, or you'll just keep talking to each other. You might not be as open to connections.
I totally agree. And I don't think anything that restores your faith in humanity is corny. I think that's a really valuable tool in life, and much needed in times like these. So that's fantastic, and I'm so glad that you've had those experiences. It's a really wonderful privilege, I think, to be able to travel solo, particularly in Africa, and to realise that the world is by and large a good place.